Swagatam. We will start a section. Swagatam to Kanchi Kamakoti Dharmamolam program. Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Before starting, we just want to make a small request in 2-3 minutes. Most of us know that a few centuries back, people all over the world come to the India, Bharat, to learn many knowledge related things in University Nalanda, Takshashila, and many Gatkasthanas in south and around the Kanchi. Swamiji many times, Shankar Vijayendra Saraswati Swamiji many times says that why people not look for the solutions or formulas which have worked for centuries. Just to related to that, we all know that Rama ruled for many centuries, and when he spent so much time on, when he is able to rule so many years, so many centuries, or so many years, if we don't believe in a centuries, then at least in a few years. He might have had some kind of a stable system, stable platform which worked for a long period in different areas like economy, finance, judiciary, education system. There are so many areas. It might have had a standard stabilized system which might have worked. Swamiji's question is why we are not even looking at those things. Looked at those kind of a things and they done some kind of a wonders. I'll just give a small example. Paramacharya. Paramacharya is a 68th Acharya, Pitadpati for Kanchi Kamakoti Petam, Sri Chandrasekharendra Saraswati Swamiji. Many people know him as a Mahaswami and Paramacharya. When he was 97 years old, T.N. Session approached. There is a person called T.N. Session in India at that time. Approached Swamiji and said that he was transferred from Home Secretary post to the Chief Election Commissioner. He was not interested. He's disappointed, saying that there is not much scope to perform or work in that area. He went and shared with Mahaswami. Mahaswamiji suggested, asked him to visit to the Uttar Meru temple that is nearer to the Kanchipuram and read some inscriptions there and also some materials there, which is around close to the 1,000 and more than 1,000 years old inscriptions, which contains the democracy, election related, and how to choose a leader, how to participate the people in decision making. There are so many kind of related topics exist in that. So he went and read that. If you read that as about him and the Indian election reforms, electoral reforms, you will find the T.N. Session was a major reformer in that area. When he's coming out of that post, he mentioned it. He's not able to implement a lot of things in that. His maximum he is able to do it 5%. And he said, if we are able to make that more than 10%, it would be a great service to the nation. That is what he quoted. After reading those inscriptions and the materials, he said, if we make that, it will make a great nation and it is a great service to the nation. So like that, there are so many examples we can give. That is what exists, and Dharmamoolam is trying to give those details. In modern world, in a present world, like many of us travel to the different countries to get a best knowledge and education, adjust maximum possible in the areas like climate, food, culture, especially the behavior and language and accent things. So our kind request is in the Dharmamoolam program, we are trying to give you a lot of knowledge, and Swamiji and Pandits are trying their best to convince and give awareness on those areas. Kindly believe us, spend little time on what we said on these sections. In few months or years, you all will prove as what we are saying is a true, and you all can make a lot of changes, just like TN session. You can make a great service to the not only to the nation, to the world. So I hope you all understand what we want to convey, and please listen to the Pandit. I'm not saying that just adjust to listen to the Pandit, but yeah, please try to get more information and involve. Now I'll hand over to the Sai Shyam. Sorry, he will just give a brief and then hand over to the today's Pandit. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Sharmaji. Good afternoon. I hope you guys can all hear me. So just a reminder, please be on so that we all can hear what Sri Kalyan Garu has to say. So yesterday we had a beautiful session. I'm pretty sure that you all will agree when I say that Sri Kalyan Garu has given us a lot of knowledge about Guru Parampara, who is a guru. So what are the qualities that should be present in a guru? And he has given a lot of anecdotes about Sri Adi Shankaracharya, Padmapadacharya, etc. I just wanted to say that fit in very well the theme of the Dharma Moolam camp, because earlier in earlier week we had Rishi Parampara. We had Sri Rani Sadashiva Murthy Garu talk about Rishi Parampara, and now we have Sri Kalyan Shastri talk about Guru Parampara. So we are progressing from Rishis to Guru. I don't want to take a lot of time. I'm pretty sure you guys are very eager to hear from Sri Kalyan Garu, as me as well. So over to Sri Kalyan Garu. A very big thank you for your lecture yesterday, and very big thank you for your lecture today as
well. Thank you so much, Shyam Garu. I hope my voice is clear and I'm audible to everybody. First of all, Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Once again, welcome to a wonderful program which is being organized by Kanji Kamakoti Matam with the name Dharma Moolam, as the name suggests. The objective of this program is to, bring all our Indians residing in all parts of the world to the source of Dharma, because Dharma is supposed to be the pillar of our entire Sanatana Dharma. Okay, it is the pillar on which our entire Sanatana Dharma rests. So I can give you a small quote in Hitopadesha. Ahara nidra bhayamaithunam cha samaname etat pashubhir naranam dharmo hi tesham adhigo visheshaha dharmena hinaha pashubhir samana. So the meaning of this shloka, which is in Hitopadesha, is ahara, eating, nidra, sleep, bhaya, fear, and maithuna, carnal desires. These are emotions or qualities which exist in both human beings and animals. So when we talk about the food chain, unfortunately, our human beings, we are at the top of the food chain. We are known as apex predator. I'm sure everybody knows what apex predator means. So man is nothing but a social animal. This is what even Aristotle had said. So animals and human beings, they share a lot of similar qualities. But what is the differentiating factor between a human and an animal? That differentiating factor is known as dharma. But unfortunately, what is happening in today's world, everybody has their own version of dharma. So when everybody keeps speaking and everybody has their own version of a particular thing, what is the remedy for that? So it eventually makes us all confused. So I am saying a particular thing, somebody else is saying something else, somebody else is saying something else. The listeners, at the end of the day, they tend to get confused. So what is the remedy to eradicate this confusion? That confusion is nothing but go back to the source. That is what dharma moolam means. So what is the moolam for dharma and what is the basis for all dharmas and our Sanatana dharma? That is what we want to say through this program. And it is a very noble and laudable effort, and I congratulate Sri Kompala Sharma Garu again for taking the initiative and taking the message to people all over the world. So having said that, I will start the second part of my lecture. I'll just share a PPT for a better understanding and comprehension of the people here. I hope you can see the PowerPoint.
We are able to say.
Yes. So yesterday I just when I mentioned about the qualities of a guru, I just mentioned one or two, but in today's session I would want to dwell a little quite some time on this particular thing called qualities of a guru. And then after that, since we spoke of a guru, there was this sampradaya known as Gurukula Vasa back then. You can't actually say back then because there are some people. In fact, my father, he went and stayed along with his guru for his education. So we just cannot say that was a practice of the yore. That was a practice in the past, and it doesn't exist of these days. Not true, but it has definitely dwindled. That is for sure. So after for the qualities of a guru, I will talk a little bit about this concept of Gurukula Vasa, and then I'll talk about the Guru Sishya relationship, which is very important. And since we are talking about qualities of a guru, obviously the question arises: what are the qualities of a shishya then? If we are talking about what are the main aspects of a guru, what are the qualities of a guru, then automatically, since guru and shishya are interrelated, we will definitely have to talk about how should a shishya be. What are the qualities of a disciple? That is also very important. So I'll talk a little bit about that, and then finally, there are so many usages in our language, especially in Sanskrit. Even though in English we just use the word teacher for everybody, that is not the case in Sanskrit. We have guru, we have sadguru, we have acharya, we have upadhyaya, we have adhyapaka. So difference between these, or do everything mean the same? So that is what I will I want to speak about that also, and finally I'll try to conclude my session in the stipulated 1 hour 15 minutes time. So having said that, I will talk about the qualities of a guru. This has been said yesterday, but I will try to elaborate a little bit more. So achinoti shastrarthan acharasthapanadapi swayamacharate yastu tasmad acharya uchyate. As of now, let's assume that guru and acharya are interchangeable words. We can use them in the same sense. Okay. So then the first, so here in this shloka, there are three qualities which are mentioned. Achinoti shastrarthan. Somebody who understands, who is very well versed or who is very proficient in Shastra and the meaning of Shastra. So when you read a particular sentence, it gives out a particular meaning. But sometimes there are very finer aspects which we call as nuances in English. There are these finer nuances which might not strike us. So this acharya or a guru is somebody who knows even the finer aspects of the Shastra. Yeah, so that is the first thing. And next, not only does he know the Shastra and the meaning, he even follows it. Swayam acharate yastu. So he even follows this achara. So since I have used the word achara, I would want to talk about the word achara itself. So the word achara in Sanskrit, it comes from chara. The root is chara. Chara is to go. So what does it mean? Go in after a particular point of time, it eventually translates to conduct. How we present ourselves, the path. So that is what achara means. So achara is anadi. So it is a parampara. So we follow so many acharas which have been passed down from generations altogether. So a guru is somebody who is very well versed, number one, and then he follows the same achara. That is number two. And the final thing is achara sthapanadapi. Not only does he know the Shastra well and he follows the Shastra well, he preaches the Shastra, he teaches the Shastra, and he teaches them to the disciples, and he makes them also follow that. So that is what is very necessary. So these days we have a lot of questions. Why do you have to do this? Why do you have to do this? So this guru, he, in the process of following the achara or sampradaya, he shows us that this is the reason why you have to do this. Okay? So this is one shloka which talks about the qualities of a guru. And there are numerous qualities and numerous shlokas which talk about the guru. So there is a book known as Guru Gita. Have you heard of this book called Guru Gita? Guru Gita
Yes.
is
Yes.
So can anybody tell me who spoke about Guru Gita to whom?
Lord Shiva to Parvati.
Yes, very good. So Shiva, during a samvada, so during the course of discussion, when Parvati asks who is a guru, then to answer the question, he has spoken of probably some hundreds of shlokas, which has come down today to us as Guru Gita. And it talks about it talks about so many aspects. So I'm not going to cover whatever is in Guru Gita because that itself will take a lot of time because we can't cover those hundreds of shlokas. But if Guru Gita is the go-to book when it comes to a guru, that is what I feel. So having said that, I would like to bring to your notice another shloka which is written by Sri Vedanta Deshikar. He was from the Vaishnava Sampradaya, but this is a very beautiful shloka which talks about what are the qualities which are necessity for a guru. What qualities should exist in a guru? So he says, Siddham Satsampradaya, somebody who is established Satsampradaya. So there is a very fine difference between Sampradaya and Satsampradaya. Satsampradaya is the righteous path. Okay. The path which is righteous, which is truthful, which is true, which is the correct path. Sampradaya, if Sampradaya means something which is passed down from generation to generation. So if let's suppose, for example, there is a clan of thieves. A clan of thieves, the way you need to steal or robbery is taught to them from generation to generation. So that is also sampradaya for them. Does that mean that we have to follow them? No. Stealing and robbery is not good. We should not do that. So that is why he uses sat, the prefix sat. Sat denotes good. Okay. Then sthiradiyam. Somebody, dhiya is his mind, his thinking is sthira, is fixated. Waver. And anagham. Agha means sin. So anagham means who is not sinful. And then shrotriyam, somebody who is very shrotriya. And then brahmanishta, whose thoughts are always fixated on Brahma, the ultimate truth, Parabrahman. Sattvastham is nothing but there are three gunas in human nature. They talk about sattva guna, rajo guna, and tamo guna. So somebody who has predominantly the sattva guna, you just can't say only sattva guna because that is not how the prakriya is. So it is a combination. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, they are in a combined state. But somebody who has more of a Sattva guna, he will be a guru. And then Satyavacham, somebody who is always honest, who always speaks the truth. Okay. And the next is Samaya Niyataya Sadhuvritya Sametam. Somebody who is very adept at performing the anushthanas or being very pious and observing things at the correct time. For example, I'm pretty sure so many people here have undergone Upanayana. So in Upanayana, you need to do Trikala Sandhya Vandana because Upanayana is supposed to be Upanayana is a Nitya Karma. Upanayana after Upanayana, you need to do Sandhya Vandana, and Sandhya Vandana is supposed to be a Nitya Karma. So Sandhya Vandana has that Sakala. So it's not just Sandhya Vandana. We say it is Sakala Sandhya Vandana. So somebody who is very punctual when it comes to these sort of activities. And then Dambha Asuyadi Muktam. Dambha is ego. And then Asuya is jealousy. Somebody who is not egotistic in nature or somebody who is not jealous. So when we talk about ego, you can say when little children might not understand what ego is being very proud. Oh, I know this, I know that. No. Somebody who does not have that, only he can be a guru. And then Asuya, jealous. So I know something and somebody else knows something better than me. So obviously we will feel that he knows more than me and we will feel jealous, irsha, jealousy. So somebody who is not having this. And next, Jita Vishaya Ganam. This is nothing but Indriya Nigraha. So in this context, I would like to share a small anecdote of Paramacharya itself. So it so happened that a disciple had come to Paramacharya, and Paramacharya was known to engage all his disciples. His love for his disciples, his compassion was universal. He did not have any sort of bheda. Oh, okay, he's a wealthy man, he's not a wealthy man. He never had that. So my father also had so many personal interactions with Paramacharya, and he keeps singing praises of Paramacharya and his universal warmth and embrace for everybody. So when I'm talking about Indriya Nigraha, Paramacharya, you know that the Sannyasa Ashrama is supposed to be one of the most, is the final ashrama. It is most Utkrishta Ashrama. So this ashrama involves a lot of, it involves a lot of acharas and niyamas. There are strict rules. So it so happened that while having a conversation with one of the disciples, he said that he mentioned a sweet and he said, this is very tasty. And Paramacharya, he said, yes, this is very tasty. And then he said, he was giving into the sense, into the the effect of senses, taste, smell, and these sort of things. And it so happened that he went to the Goshala, he took dung of the cow and he wrote it across his tongue, just so that his jihva chapalya, that longing for taste and all would die. So this is what Indriya Nigraha means, control over our sense organs. Yeah. So since this Jita Vishana Gana means Indriya Nigraha, I happen to share one anecdote of Paramacharya, who is like a beacon of light for us. He has shown us the path, and fortunately even his successors, Shri Jayendra Saraswati Swamiji and even Shri Shankara Vijayendra Saraswati Swamiji, they are following the path which have been shown by his guru. So Jita Indriya is having control over your senses. And then Dirgha Bandhu, somebody who is your bandhu, who is friendly, but not for a particular point of time. He is Dirgha Bandhu. Guru is always a well-wisher. Guru is always your well-wisher. It does not have to be only for a particular phase of time. When you read near a guru, you must have read under a guru, or you must have gone under his training for 2 or 3 years. It just does not mean that guru will be responsible for you only for those 3 years. Even though you move out and then you pursue your own education and all this, the entire samsara sagara life happens, your guru is always your hitaishi. He will always think good of you and he will always come to your rescue when there is dire need. Such a person is a guru. Then dayalu. He is dayalu. Daya is compassion. He is having a lot of mercy and compassion towards the shishyas. Then skalitye shasitaram. This is very important. So when it does not necessary. So when we are learning something, if it is an easy topic, we will grasp it very instantly. And if it is a tough topic, you need not necessarily know it during the first instance. When a guru says something once, some people might grasp it. And it differs from person to person also. So I might know something after listening to it thrice. Somebody else who is brighter, he might know it even in the first instance itself. And there are some people who will repeatedly offend. So if you repeatedly offend, these days we see that teachers keep beating young in school and they keep crying and all that. But this is a very important quality of a guru. If you err, if you make a mistake, guru is the person who will correct you. Somebody who corrects you only then. Oh, this is a very important quality of a guru. Skalitye shasitaram. Somebody who corrects you when you make a mistake, when you err. And swaparahita param deshikam bhushnur ipset. Swaparahita param. Swahita and parahita. Somebody who does always good for himself and good for others also. Yeah. So these are these are the qualities which have been enumerated in this. This is from a stotra called Nyasa Vimshati, which is written by Sri Vedanta Deshikar. This particular shloka, there are 20 shlokas in that, and this particular shloka talks about the qualities of a guru. Okay. So next, moving on. So the next one is, I'll talk about a little more about even more qualities of a guru. So there are hundreds and hundreds of shlokas which sing about praises about guru and how should he be and all that. So I have taken only some important things, okay, or some famous shlokas. So this shloka says, Nirvartayantyanya pramadataha. So this means nirvartayati, guruhu nirvartayati. Whom does he nirvartaya is? To save somebody. Saving somebody from what? Somebody who saves people when they are erring, when they are diversifying from when they're straying from their path. So the guru is the person who will help you to not stray to a bad path, but who will help you to stick to the righteous path. Swayam cha nishpapa pathe pravartate. And the guru himself, he will only go in the marga of, he will only go in the sanmarga. Sanmarga is the right path. So the guru will go in the sanmarga. He will not go in a path which involves him to be corrupt or which involves him to do something wrong, something sinful. Gunati tattvam hitamichur anginam shivarthinam yaha cha guruhu nigadyate. So the final thing is, people who want to go in a path, in the right path, he will always show them that this is right and this is wrong, and he will always put them in the right path. So saving somebody from the wrong path and then putting them back into the right path, while he himself is being in that right path, such a person is known as a guru, is what this shloka says. Then धर्मज्ञो धर्मकर्ता च सदा धर्मपरायणः Tattvebhyah sarvashastrartadeshako gururuchyate. So dharma, what does dharma mean? Many people think that dharma is, so dharma has multiple words. So the beauty of Sanskrit is, like I told you yesterday, one word basing on the context having multiple meanings. We call them synonyms, right? So similarly, basing on the context, we'll have to change the meaning of a single word. So dharmagya, somebody who knows dharma, and who is dharma karta, somebody who does, who follows that. And dharma parayana is dharma parayana, somebody who is very firm, who sticks to the path of righteousness. And then tattvebhyah sarvashastrartha adeshako, and somebody who does what the shastras have adesha, the directive which have been given by the shastras, somebody who follows them meticulously, he is known as a guru. That is what this shloka says. And then the next one, prerakaha suchakaschaiva vachako darshakas tatha shikshako bodhakaschaiva chadete gurava smrita. So this shloka again talks about some other qualities which are necessary in a guru. Prerakaha. So the first thing is, he is a motivator. He inspires us. He, like how our Kumbhala Sharma has said in the beginning, when he spoke about that small anecdote about Paramacharya and T.N. Seshan. T.N. Seshan, earlier he was chief secretary, but then he moved to a different role. And then he was unsure of himself. He said, I can't contribute, I don't know what to do. Then Paramacharya, he inspired him. He showed him the way, saying that go to that particular temple and you will find new insights, okay, new ideas where you can contribute in a very good way, so that this will benefit not just you but the entire community itself. That is the greatness of a guru. He is always the motivator. He inspires us to stick to the right path. Okay. And then Suchakaha. So he will first inspire and then he will guide us. Inspiration is one thing. Once we have started that journeys always need not be very cozy. So there is again this English saying that life is not a bed of roses. Similarly, whatever path we choose or we embrace, it will always have a lot of thorns, it will have a lot of obstacles. So somebody who will show us, who will always guide us, Suchakaha, he will say that, okay, you're straying from the path. You will have to stick to your path. You can't stray. You will have these sort of an obstacle. This is how you will have to go beyond them. Somebody who constantly says that he is a guru. And then Vachakaha. Vachaka is Vacha Paribhashane. So Vachaka usually means Vachaka is to tell. What will he tell? He will tell that this is right and this is wrong and this is where you have erred. If we somehow fall during our journey, then he will be the person who will say that, see, this is where you went wrong. So that is what our teachers do, right? So when you're solving a mathematics problem or when we're trying to understand something, and when you understanding in a wrong way, the teacher is the person who will come and explain, saying that, see, this is the step where you have lost the path. You strayed from here. Oh, okay. And then Darshakaha, somebody who shows what? So we are at a particular juncture. We are here. And we still have a long way to go. So the teacher will show us what is next also. So he will show us what is next. He is the Darshaka. He will show us. And then Shikshakaha Bodhakascha. So this I would like to say as, so Shikshaka is somebody who teaches us. And Bodhaka is somebody who instructs us. So what is the difference between an instructor and a teacher? So I would like to put it in this way. So there is theoretical application to something and then there is also the practical part, right? So we learn theory first and then we go to practical. So Guru is the person who shows us both the theory. So if in Atma Vidya regarding, what is true knowledge and all this, he will first show us the scriptures. He will teach us the scriptures. That is theoretical knowledge. But then Atma Vidya is something, it is a Anubhava Vidya. It has to come to our experience. So that is the practical part. So if you just know the theory and you can't upgrade yourself to the practical part, you're no less than stuck. So the guru is the person who shows us both the theoretical aspect and the other aspect, which is the practical aspect. So Sikshakaha Bodhakaha means Sikshakaha Bodhakascha. So these are the 6 qualities which are necessary in a guru. Okay. And then Guru Bhakti Samayuktaha. A guru always keeps remembering guru. He should have bhakti or devotion towards his guru. We can, living examples of those are our Shankara Vijayendra Saraswati Swamiji. He always remembers his guru and Paramaguru. So that is the sampradaya. That is the tradition. That is the Indian tradition. So whenever we do something, we pay obeisance to our guru and Paramaguru. Even when you are doing mantra japa or something, there is this particular hierarchy known as Guru, Paramaguru, and Parameshti Guru. So we have to always stay devoted to them. So that is also a true sign of a Guru. Puranajno Visheshavit. So somebody who has great knowledge in Puranas and Shastras and all. And Evam Lakshana Sampanno Gururitya Bidhiyate. So somebody who has these qualities, he is known as a Guru. So these are some of the various shlokas in various literature which I have found regarding. Next. So after moving from the point called quality of a Guru, now I would like to talk a little bit about Gurukula Vasa. So yesterday I just made a small reference regarding ashramas. So what does an ashrama mean? Ashrama does not mean a thatched hut where some old person with a lot of beard stays and he has, you know, resigned himself from the city life and he is now living in an ashram. That is not what ashrama means. Ashrama, according to our tradition, means that duration of life. Ashrama. Known as Varnashrama Dharma. So ashrama is, in life, we have divided our life into 4 stages. So ashrama can mean a stage. So this is a beautiful shloka. Can anybody tell me where this shloka comes? Shave abhyasta vidyanam yavvane vishayishinam vardhakye munivrittinam yogenante tanutyajam. Can anybody tell me where this shloka comes? Where is this shloka from?
One can raise the hand. No.
Yeah, you can raise your hand and then say if you know the answer.
No.
Okay. Okay. So this is from Raghuvamsha. So you people might be surprised. Why did I bring a shloka from Raghuvamsha into the whole talk on Guru? So this is a very beautiful shloka which explains the 4 stages of human life. So Saishave, when you're young, you will have to learn a lot of vidya, abhyasta vidyanam. So you will have to read scriptures, you will have to read, you will learn, you will have to educate yourself. So I'll give a little more elaboration on this particular stage. So this is where we have this Gurukula Vasa. Yavvane Vishayeshinam Vardhakyam Munivrittinam Yogenante Tanutyajam have got nothing to do with Gurukula Vasa. So I'll try to elaborate a little bit more on this Saishava, this Brahmacharya Ashrama. So what happens in Brahmacharya Ashrama? For Brahmacharya Ashrama, for a little boy to go to a Gurukula, what is the samskara which is necessary? It is called Upanayana. So Upanayana means Upa is near. The suffix Upa means near. Nayanam to bring. Okay. To bring near. Near what? Near to bring this child for Vedadhyayana. This Upanayana samskara is the prerequisite for Vedadhyayana or Adhyayana. So this first stage is where the need for Gurukula. So there is a very small question here. So the question arises, So in our olden days, even the father was a guru, because when you're doing Upanayana, your father is the one who will give you Gayatri Mantra Upadesha. Father is also a guru. Yeah. But then, if father himself is a guru, then why not learn under him only? Why send that child to another guru and make him learn? Yeah. So the reasoning behind this is, even though the father is a guru, there might always be a scope where his father instinct, the love for his son, might come to the fore, and he might not see small mistakes of the uh, of the son of the small Vatu, which is why, even though they were well versed and even though the father was very well versed, they would practice. They had this practice of sending young Vatus to another guru. So when you go to a Gurukula, everybody is equal. Even Krishna Paramatma, when he was in Sandeep, Maharshi Sandeep in his Gurukulam, even he did all the daily things like every other thing. Now Krishna Paramatma is Sakshat Bhagavan for us. Now, how can Bhagavan do all these small things? That is why, to set an example, in his Krishna Avatara, he went to Gurukula, he went in search of a guru, and he did all the things which any other person would do. So, you people might have noticed, before the talk, our Kompila Sharmagaru, he had shared a small thing, message of Paramacharya. So, how do you purify your mind? How do you purify your mind? The answer for that was through service. Manava Madhava Seva. There is a small saying in Telugu, right? Manava Seve, Madhava Seva. So we have this concept even in current day society. So sometimes when somebody robs or he does a mistake, the judge, he passes a judgment saying that give him 300 hours of community service. So you might have come across this term known as community service. What is community service? What is community service? You will forget that you are the son of a wealthy person, or you are this and you are that, and you will simply serve. You will cater to the needs of all the people in the society. What happens through this? This will eradicate the feeling of ego or pride inside us, saying that no, I'm the son of a wealthy person, so I should not be doing this. This somebody should do. I will not do this. Somebody else should do. I will not do this. This itself means ego. This itself means pride, false pride, self-conceit. So this practice, the practice of serving people selflessly without any motive. So usually people will do service and then they will take some sort of a benefit. But when you talk about community service and when you're talking about seva, so this entire thing will come in Susrusha also. That I will come at a later point of time, probably in some 20 minutes from now. So Susrusha is nothing but doing seva. So this seva, it instills good qualities inside us, and it eradicates all the negative qualities like pride and ego in a person. So that is why, even though a father was learned, he would send his son to a Gurukula. And the second thing, so there is a saying known as you sow, so shall you reap. I'm sure everybody must have heard of this saying, as you sow, so shall you reap. Now we have planted a small seed. We have put a seed inside the soil and it started germinating, and there is a small plant which comes. But then let's imagine that the plant is not growing straight, but it is growing crooked. We have noticed that, but we have not paid any attention. And eventually it becomes a Mahavriksha. It grows into a huge tree. Now, after growing into a huge tree, can you change that crooked tree into a straight tree? That is impossible. Right? Because if you have had to do it, you should have done it when it was in its budding stage. The same thing applies even for this Brahmacharya Ashrama also. Brahmacharya Ashrama is the base for all the other three ashramas. it is the foundation. It is the foundation. It is the base for the other three stages. Whatever brahmacharya, ashrama, whatever education and whatever knowledge we acquire, that itself dictates how we progress in at later stages. So the next thing is yavvane vishayeshinam. So yavvana is you have entered, you have finished all your education and you have become a youth, and then you have married and you are enjoying both the joys and sorrows of life. In this particular stage, you keep earning money and you keep amassing a lot of wealth and all this by doing some job or something. But the foundation which has happened in brahmacharya, it will help us not become greedy about materialistic things. So you see, whatever has been taught in brahmacharya stage, that's creating the other stage, which is yavvana also. So when you are in yavvana, then you are in grihastha stage, you will try to follow the path of sadachara. Yeah. All this is because you have learned about this in your brahmacharya ashrama. So this ashrama is very, very important. So olden days, this was the practice, and this would, shape the entire journey of the life. And then vardhakya, after you have seen a lot of life, then when you are approaching old age, you want to, cut back from day to day life. You want to just restrict yourself, cut back to from the daily life, and then go back to whatever you have learned as a brahmachari, and then you want to focus more on God, or at least the right path, and then yogena ante tanutyajam. In the final stages, sannyasa ashrama, where you renounce everything, you leave everything, and then you fixate yourself on the Parabrahman. So this is a shloka from Raghuvamsha, but this beautifully encapsulates all the four stages. And I have chosen this shloka because this shloka talks, although about all the four stages, but then this is very important because this talks particularly about Saishavya Abhyasta Vidyanam. Whatever we learn in our Gurukula or the Brahmacharya stage, this is the foundation, and this totally dictates what happens in the next future also. So next, after this Gurukula, Gurukula and Gurukula Vasa. So during the course of Gurukula Vasa, we come in contact with the Guru. So there are new stories, even we have stories in Upanishads about the Gurukulas and how gurus used to test the students, and how was the society back then. All these can be seen in the Upanishads. But then once the Shishya has entered the Guru, they have a relationship. Okay, the Guru and Shishya, they come in touch with each other. They are in contact with each other. And now the next thing which I want to talk about is that Guru Shishya relation. Okay. So Guru, so normally when we join a new course, or when we join a new school, or we join in a new boarding school, there is a signature which has to be done by the parent or by a guardian. What is the difference between a parent and a guardian? Parent is somebody who has given birth to us and who is responsible their entire life. But a guardian, he might not be related to us, but he is a caretaker. So there are different roles, but all these roles combine together in this one particular person known as Guru. The Guru, he teaches us, he takes care of us, and then he in Brahmacharya ashrama, he makes sure that the students are well fed, if they are practicing their karmas properly or no. And then he is even the guardian. If they are straying from the path, if they are not doing something properly, he has to put them back in the right path. So Guru, that one person, he will play multiple roles. So the Guru Shishya relation has been given a lot of prominence in our Sampradaya and tradition. So this shloka says, Parushamapi Gurunam Buddhibodharthamuktam Vachanam Anusaran Yati Shishyo Mahatvam. खनितलगरत्नं श्रेष्ठमप्यत्र क्षणोत्तमधिगतं तद्भाति मौलौ नृपाणाम्. So it says a guru will show the path to a shishya, and if the shishya follows that path, he will shine, he will become very famous. Fine. But sometimes the path might not be very easy, it might be a very difficult path. Yet it is the duty of the shishya to follow whatever path has been set forth by the guru, and it will bring him great fame. So the simile, the analogy, the comparison which the kavi, the poet, wants to bring here is, where do we find precious stones, gems, and diamonds? We find them in mines, deep inside the earth. We have to dig. We have to dig mines, and only there we find gems. And these gems later on will adorn the crowns which are worn on the forehead of a king. See, Maulau Nrupanam Maulau Tadbhati. But we don't use the gems which have been found in the mine directly onto the crown of a king. Do we use that? No. These stones, they are again, there is a process for, there is gemology. Our tradition has gemology. It talks about how to clean a gem and all that. That is there in our tradition also. So it undergoes rigorous cleaning, and there is a lot of cutting and polishing and so on and so forth. And only after that, it will go on to the crown of a king. Similarly, the path which the guru shows, it might be ridden with a lot of obstacles, but ultimately it is for the polishment of the student himself. And only after he follows it with utmost devotion, that the shishya will attain a lot of fame. So that is what this shloka talks about. Okay. Next. Yata khanana khanitrena bhutale vari vindati evam gurugatam vidyam sushrushur adhigacchati. Again, this shloka talks about what sort of a student will gain knowledge, will get knowledge from a guru. So the shloka says, Guru is the embodiment of knowledge. Like we said yesterday, Gukarastu andhakaraha, Rushabdastan tan nivarakaha, tan nirodhakaha, andhakara nirodhitvad gururitya vidiyate. So what is the prime function of the guru? He will disperse the darkness, which is nothing but ignorance in us, and lead us onto the path of light, sanmarga. So somebody who does susrusha, what is susrusha? To serve a guru with obedience and utmost devotion. That person only will get the knowledge from a guru. And the simile they have used here is yatha khanana khanitrena bhutale vari vidanti. So there is a big, huge farm. You need water to plant trees. After seeds are sown into the land, you need water. Water is very essential for the growth of plants. So where do you get water? If there is a river nearby, you can channel it. But if there is no river, what do we do these days? We dig wells, or we dig the earth. So when you dig the earth, it eventually brings out water. So in the same way, somebody who serves the guru with utmost devotion and obedience, only he will dig. And he will dig the finer aspects of knowledge from a guru. So that is what the shloka says. And then the next shloka talks about how whatever we learn from a guru can never be, you can't fulfill the runa. It talks about there is something known as guru runa. So ekamapyaksharam yastu guruhu shishye nivedayet. Even if the guru teaches one letter to a shishya, to a disciple, Prithivyam nasti taddravyam yaddatva hi aruni bhavet. So runa is loan. So everybody knows what is loan. You go to a bank, you take money from it, and then you have to pay it back. Interest. But the shloka here says, even one letter which you have learned from a guru, there is no such thing in the entire earth which can repay the loan. So that is the greatness of guru and the knowledge he transmits into us. Okay, this is what this shloka talks about. And then next, here during the course of guru shishya relation, we have learned about the qualities of a guru. And now the question arises, why only talk about guru? Even shishya also needs to have some qualities, right? So this particular instance, this is from, I have taken this from Rigveda Bhashya Bhumika. There are 4 mantras there, but I have only taken this one mantra, which talks about how a guru should be there. And the next sloka is about how a shishya should be there, how a disciple should be there. So I'll just explain briefly what this mantra says. So this mantra says, somebody who constantly gives upadesh of Veda into the ear of a disciple. Avitathena karnavat. So karna is ear. Somebody who constantly keeps giving upadesh of Veda upadesha to a disciple, he is a guru. But then there is a small question here. How does he do that? How does he do that? So if you put an earphone for 24 hours constantly bombarding your ears, will you feel relaxed or will you have ear pain at the end of the day? We will have ear pain at the end of the day. So similarly, if the guru is constantly, continuously giving Vedopadesha, then will it not cause dukkha? Will it not cause pain? So for that he says, adukham kurvan amritam samprayachan. Adukham kurvan. So a guru is somebody who is constantly giving Vedopadesha without causing any problem, any pain to the Shishya. So what does the mantra exactly mean? So in the Bhashya for this mantra, Sayanacharya writes, so I had mentioned earlier also, some people grasp things very easily and some people grasp, it takes time for them to grasp something. So guru is somebody who will come down to the stature of, who will come down to the level of a shishya, and then he will teach them according to their level. So these days in education systems we have something back learners, normal learners, and advanced learners. So guru is somebody who will spot that this person is an advanced learner, this person is a normal learner, this person is a slow learner, and accordingly he adjusts his method of teaching. So that is when we get knowledge, right? If our maths teacher teaches us in the same method for all the classmates, then some people will understand it and some people will not understand it. So ultimately it is the responsibility of the teacher to know who is unable to follow and who is unable to understand, and thereby coming to their level. So that is what a guru does. That is what this mantra says. And then you will have to treat that guru, such a guru, as your pita and mata, and you should never cause any sort of harm to such a guru. So that is what this says. So this guru shishya or this tradition is supposed to be very holy and pious to us. So, and under no circumstances do you have to treat a guru in a harsh method. So there are some other slokas there is a shloka in Guru Gita itself. Gurum humkritya hurnkritya. So normally if you have a very good relation with the guru and you're very friendly, if sometimes you talk in a very rude manner, so you should never talk to your guru like that. So it says smashane jayate vriksha. You ultimately will be born as a tree. So being born as a tree, you will have a lot of fruits and flowers. But no, you will be born as a tree in a smashana, in a graveyard, which is bereft of leaves. So these sort of shlokas are there in Guru Gita, excellent shlokas. But the inner meaning here is you should never cause harm. You should not do any sort of droha to your guru. Yeah. So this is about some features of a guru. And I will just say one shloka about the qualities of a shishya. Till now we have spoken about who is a guru and then what is the need for a guru and what are some of the main qualities. So we just can't restrict them to this. Guru's qualities are countless. Guru, we are not eligible enough to talk about Guru and all this, but just to give an idea, I have chosen some slokas which are necessary. But then, is it only that the Gurus only should have a quality? So Guru will have these many restrictions and qualities, but then a Shishya can be wavered. He can do whatever he pleases. No. A Shishya also has a lot of qualities. There should be a lot of qualities in a Shishya also. So here this shloka talks about the qualities which are necessary for a Shishya. Sadbuddhihi. Sadbuddhihi. Somebody whose intellect is Sat. Sat is always, Sat denotes good or pure. So you might be very intelligent, but if you use it for some unethical things, what is the use of such intellect? There is no use. There is no prayojana for such an intellect. So that is what here Sadbuddhi means. Sadbuddhi is using somebody whose intellect is pure and it is not used for dishonest or evil things. Then Sadhu Sevi, somebody who always wants to serve sadhu, good men, holy men. Then Samuchita Charitaha, somebody who has a good charita. What does charita mean? Charita is a history or character. Samuchita Charita, who's got a good character. And then Tattva Bodhabhilashi, somebody who is very enthusiastic to know about what is the tattva, what is Atma Tattva, what is Guru Tattva, or who is very enthusiastic and to know about whatever the Guru teaches. Okay? And then Susrushuhu, somebody who always wants to serve his Guru. Susrusha is serving with utmost bhakti and devotion. Okay? And then Tyakta Manaha. Tyakta is to leave. What is Manaha? Mana is pride. Somebody who does not have pride. Somebody who is not an egotist. That is Tyakta Manaha. And then Pranipatana Paraha. So this means somebody who does Sashtanga, Pranipatana. Pranipatana is always doing Namaskara. So Pranati Tati Pranipata is who is always doing Namaskara to his Guru. So there are various types of Namaskaras. We talk about Sashtanga Namaskara. In fact, the word Namaskara comes from Namaha, Nam Dhatu. So the meaning of the Dhatu is Swapakarsha Bodhanukula Swiya Vyaparaha. This is as per Nyaya or Vyakarana theory. Swapakarsha Bodhanukula Swiya Vyaparaha. So Aham Bhavatapekshaya Apakrishtaha. So when you see some elder, you have this feeling of, okay, he's elder and I am younger. I am very inferior to him. So after you get this knowledge, whatever activity, in the form of folding hands, that is known as Namaskara. Okay. Swapakarsha Bodhanukulaha Swiya Vyaparaha. That is what Namaskara. So Shishya should always prostrate and pay his respects and obeisances to the Guru. So this is why whenever a Yati or a Jnani or a Guru comes, we have this tradition of doing Sashtanga Namaskara or Pranama to them. This is a quality of a good Shishya. And Prashnakala Pratisha. So after a Guru teaches, he will keep or prashna kalaha. There is time for question and answer. So during this question and answer, when you ask questions, when do you ask questions? When you don't have clarity about a particular subject. So when by this process of asking these questions, you are eventually gaining more clarity. And then shantaha, somebody who is very calm. And then dantaha. Danta is somebody who is very patient and patient. And then anasuyuhu, somebody who's not jealous. And then Sharanam Upagataha, somebody who is always ready to fall at the feet of his guru. And then Shastra Vishwasa Shali, somebody who has utmost Vishwasa, belief in Shastra and the sayings of Shastra. Shishya Praptaha Pariksham Krutavid Abhimatam Tattvataha Shikshaniyaha. So these are some of the qualities which are necessary in a disciple, Shishya. This is what this shloka says. Even this shloka is from Nyasa Manjari written by Vedanta Deshika. And then when we talk about Guru and Shishya, there is this beautiful explanation of initiating. How does the Guru show his grace and initiate a Guru, a Shishya into the, or make him learn or make him knowledgeable. So our traditional texts, they talk about 3 ways. So one is Kukkura Diksha, the other is known as Matsya Diksha, and the other is known as Kachapa Diksha or Kamatha Diksha. So Kamatha is nothing but a Kachapa, which is a tortoise. So I will just briefly explain what are these. So Kukkura. First we talk about a hen. A hen will lay eggs and it will sit on them. So it will sit on them. So this is known as incubation as per Western science. So what is happening is, because it is sitting, it will pass heat, and due to that heat, that egg will break, and then the little chicks will come into the world. So here the important point here to be noted is touch, sparsha. The hen is actually sitting on the eggs, and because of the sense of touch, it is transferring the heat, and then the chicks are absorbing or grasping this heat, and then they are coming into the life. So similarly, so usually this happens when the Guru gives mantra diksha. When Guru gives mantra diksha, he places the head on his hand on his head. So there is sparsha of the Guru on the Shishya. When we take mantra diksha, I mean, if some of you who are here, not children, the elders who have this diksha initiation, this is how it happens. This is at least one of the method. Okay, the Guru will put his hand on the head of the Shishya, and then he will give diksha. So this is the first kind. It's known as Kukkura Diksha. Kukkura is hen. And then the second thing is known as Matsya Diksha. So in Matsya Diksha, what happens? A fish, it lays eggs. Even a hen will lay eggs. But then a fish can lay eggs only in water. And water is not still. Water is always moving. So the eggs cannot stay at a particular place. Okay. They always keep drifting. But then what fish do? It lays eggs. And then it keeps looking at them. It keeps looking at them. So just by looking at them, finally, after the eggs, pass their gestation period or incubation period, the little baby fish come out of the eggs. So our tradition says that just by looking, sometimes the Guru, he is in such an exalted position that the mere sight or just by looking at a particular disciple is more than enough to initiate him. Yeah, there are so many stories where just by looking at a Guru, people have gone into samadhi, so on and so forth. Yeah. Then the third thing is known as Kamatha or Kachapa Diksha. So here, what happens is, the tortoise, it lays its egg on the seashores. A tortoise will never lay eggs in the water. It comes out of the sea, it comes to the seashore, it digs the sand, and then it places eggs. And then it covers it up again, and then it goes back. it never comes back for the eggs to hatch and take and lead the hatchlings or this baby tortoises which have hatched from an egg, and it never takes it into the sea along with it. So if you look at a hen, as soon as the chicks have hatched, they will always keep roaming behind the hen. The hen will always keep showing the path. The same with the fish also. After small fish or baby fish are born, it might or it might or not also. So some fish, they still, the fish keeps going and the baby fish keep following the mother fish. But a tortoise never does this. This is a very peculiar behavior. So our tradition was so advanced to observe to make observations among animals also. So a tortoise, apparently, at least that is what the tradition says, it always keeps thinking about its babies. So just by mere thinking, that thinking has such a power that it enables the baby tortoises to hatch from the eggs and then come out of them and then eventually go into the sea and then start their own journey. So these are the three types of initiations which we talk about when there is this Guru Shishya Parampara and Guru Shishya relation. So one is known as Kukura Diksha, the other is known as Matsya Diksha, and the final thing is known as Kamatha or Kachapa Diksha. Okay. So having said that, this will be the last part of my talk, which talks about, so there are numerous sambodhanas, the way you talk, the way you address. Yeah, address is the right word. How do you address? So in Western education, we use the word teacher. And then, can anybody tell me what are some synonyms for teacher which are used in Western education? He is a teacher, professor, and all this. What other words are used? We even use mentor, right? Mentorship program. We even use the word mentor. But then, in our tradition, on a superficial level, there are strict distinctions between Guru and Acharya, Upadhyaya, so on and so forth. I will just talk briefly about this, and then during the concluding remarks, shloka which has been written by Jagadguru Adi Shankaracharya, which talks about a Guru, very beautiful shloka. I will just explain briefly about the shloka and then finally conclude my talk today. So, Guru, who is a Guru? Guru is somebody who takes us into the path of light, who eradicates our ignorance. Just like Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnanananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yen Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha, and Gukarastu Andhakara. Even this shloka also talks about the same thing. So the Guru is somebody who will take us from the path of ignorance or darkness into light. But then who is an Acharya? So I told you before in one of the shlokas, it says this one, Achinotihi Shastrarthan Panadapi Swayamacharate Yastu Tasmad Acharya Uchyate. So there is a small distinction between Guru and an Acharya. So we call Sri Chandrasekharendra Saraswati Swamiji as Paramacharya. So Paramacharya. So Acharya usually, he also teaches us, he also puts us into the path, but he follows what the tradition has said. So Achara itself is Sampradaya, Achara, something which has come to us from one generation to another generation. So I told you again, I made a small reference regarding how Paramacharya had gone to Goshala and he cleansed his tongue using Gomayam, that is cow dung. So the Sannyasa Ashrama has a very strict set of rules. You have to follow them. Everybody knows that Paramacharya is a Jnani. He is a Jivan Mukta. So there are beautiful publications from Kanchi Kamakoti Mata like Nadiche Daivamu and so many other books which talk about his leelas. These are magic. There is no explanation. Today's science can't come and explain how our Paramacharya has done so many things to so many other people. So many people. His love, his warmth, his compassion was universal. Anybody who approached him definitely found a remedy for their solution to their problem. So Acharya is somebody who will also follow the path which has been set forth in the Sampradaya or Shastra. A guru necessarily does not have to follow that. So that is a small distinction. But if you look at a very sukshma level, on a microscopic level, a guru can also be an acharya. Acharya can also be a guru. But usually, what Sampradaya says is, acharya is somebody who sticks to tradition. He is a jnani. Guru is a jnani. Acharya also can be a jnani. But then he sticks to the tradition which has been put forth by our Shastra or Dharma Shastras or our Vaidika Sanatana Dharma, and then he follows them meticulously. So sometimes during Guru Purnima, on Guru Purnima, we have a special day just to remember and pay our gratitude to our gurus. So during this Guru Purnima, my grandfather, who was, he did a lot of yoga prachara and he knew Paramacharya also at a very personal level, on a very personal level. Whenever he would give prasada, after doing dhyana and all this, whenever he would give prasada, if that prasada was given to some shishya, and if he would prostrate, he would have to fast. Why would he have to fast? Because this Naivedya is nothing but Guru Swarupa. And holding that in your hand, you are again prostrating. This would be a huge blemish. This would be a huge sin, which is why for Prayaschitta he would fast. Similarly, so many acharas and rules are there for, especially when you have this institute or this whole matha and all this, you have very strict rules, and then you have these sort of niyamas which you have to follow meticulously. There is no scope for shortcuts. They follow it very religiously, which is why there is so much sanctity in this matha. The parampara, that anadi, that avichinna parampara, right from Shankaracharya to our present day Sri Vijayendra Saraswati Swamiji. It is the greatness of the parampara, it is the greatness of that achara, which is why it has so much sanctity. So every now and then you come across so many gurus and acharyas. So anybody who does basic degree in yoga, he calls himself a yoga guru, he calls himself a yoga achara. These days societies, they do not even understand the depth, the importance of such terms, and they use it yatheshtam, they use it by whatever means. If you go to Rishikesh or Haridwar, which is in Uttarakhand, in every street and gully you will see people boards saying that Kriya Yoga Guru, Kriya Yoga is taught here for only 350 rupees. Kriya Yoga and Kundalini are just done for 350 rupees. Kundalini Jagarana is such an advanced feature in Yoga Shastra, and these people, most of them are fake. Most of them are fake. So we have to have that distinction regarding who is a fake guru and who is the correct guru, the proper guru, who can guide us forever in this life and the coming lives to come, and eventually who can lead us to liberation and moksha. So those sort of gurus we can find only when you have this achara, you have this sampradaya. Okay, so that is why even though we consider Veda Vyasa or Badarayana Vyasa and then Adi Shankaracharya, we have that entire lineage, that parampara, having a guru with whom we can approach in our day-to-day lives. If you can't visit every day, at least once in a year or twice in a year, we have this habit of going and our respects to Acharya in Kanchipuram, in Kanchimatam, or whenever Acharya or Paramacharya or even our current Acharya, whenever he comes for yatras, it is our basic duty and responsibility that we go and pay our obeisance and respects to him, so that he blesses us for Sadgati. Okay. And then the third thing is Upadhyaya. Upadhyaya is the direct example of the direct translation of our current day teacher. Somebody who teaches. Adhyapanam. There is somebody known as Adhyapaka and then Upadhyaya. So in olden days, Gurukulams, we had this. So in Gurukulam, there were thousands and thousands of students. Like how Professor Rani Sadashiva ji had earlier told that there were 10,000 students in a Gurukula. So one single person cannot run the entire structure. So there were many gurus and there were many teachers there teaching. So 30 students reading Rig Veda, 20 students would read Yajur Veda, so on and so forth. So these people were termed to be known as Upadhyaya. They were just one step below that main teacher. And they, even though, so usually we say Adhyayanam, Adhyapanam. There are 6 main duties of a Brahmin. So Adhyayanam, Adhyapanam, Yajanam, Yajanam, these things are said. So Adhyayanam and Adhyapanam, Vedadhyayanam, reading Veda, and Veda Adhyapanam. Whatever you have read, passing it on to the next generation. That is the first and foremost thing of a Brahmin. So at that point in olden days, sometimes some people would strictly do this Adhyayana and Adhyapana for no materialistic. But some people, because of societal circumstances, even though they had done Adhyapana, because you eventually need money and you need some sort of food grain to sustain in life. So for that, they would teach them, and hence they were one step below to the main Adhyapaka. And then there is something known as Sadguru. Who is a Sadguru? There is Guru, there is Acharya, and then Upadhyaya. There are still so many, you can make so many other distinctions also. There's people, you must have heard of something known as Avadhuta. We use Avadhuta for some particular people. So these Avadhutas, they are just not restricted by the societal norms and rules. They are in their own world. They can do whatever they please, but that does not mean they are not elevated. They are not in that exalted state of spirituality. We can't say that. So such people are known as Avadhutas. There is Sadguru. So what I understand from Sadguru, so let's take the best example, or Kanchi Paramacharya only. So thousands and thousands of people, if you read that book called Nadiche Daivam, you will find so many incidents and anecdotes where each person shares his own experience with Paramacharya. And the greatness of Paramacharya was such that every person felt that Paramacharya was blessing him 100%, was giving his entire grace to him. How can when one person can show his grace to thousands and thousands of people, and they even feel the same thing? That is the astonishing part, surprising part. Paramacharya, so if there are just 4 or 5 people, there is always a scope for interacting, and then one person would narrate his experience and the other person would narrate his experience, and then they would tally. But for this sort of an experience, for thousands of people, that is a very great feat. And that is why Paramacharya is, just by the mere smarana, just by mere thinking of him, he can just absolve us of all our sins, is what all the Sishyas consider. Even though Paramacharya has attained Siddhi, he still is the driving force for lakhs and lakhs of devotees in our Kanchimatha. So Sadguru is somebody, as per my understanding, okay, what I have felt is that even though Sadhguru is definitely somebody who has reached that stage of life and who is a knower, but then what his grace is there. His grace is, there is no bound, there is no end for his grace. Millions of people, lakhs and lakhs of people who come in contact with such a person are definitely transformed. That juncture, that particular juncture where your life becomes in two stages. My life has two stages. My life before I knew Kanchi Paramacharya and after I knew Kanchi Paramacharya. That becomes the dividing point in our life. So very few people of that stature we come across in our lives, and if there are elders here in today's session, and if somebody had the good fortune of meeting Paramacharya and having his blessing, I'm pretty sure that that is more than enough in this life, and that is more than enough to show us the right path. So this is about Guru, Acharya, Upadhyaya, and Sadguru. Now, the final concluding remark, I would just want to talk about this beautiful shloka which has been written by, again, Jagadguru Adi Shankaracharya only. So, see, Jagadguru Adi Shankaracharya, we use both Acharya and Guru. He's not just Guru, he's Jagadguru. He's Guru for the entire world. So, that such is the stature of Bhagavad Pada Adi Shankaracharya. And he has written this. This is the first shloka in Shatashloki. So in yesterday's session, I have told you how Shankaracharya had, his teachings were universal, and it was not just restricted to only the learned strata of the society. If you can't read 1,000 slokas, fine, I will write 100 slokas. Can't read 100, fine, I will give you 10 slokas. If you can't even read 10 slokas, I will give you one sloka. Such is the magnanimity of Bhagavad Pada. And in Shatashloki, in the first sloka, he jestfully, he is in a playful mood, and he wants to say, okay, you are talking about a guru. I want to find a comparison for a guru. I want to find a drishtanta, something which is a simile for a guru. I want to try to compare a guru to some thing in this world. So he says, Drishtanto naiva drishtaha tribhuvana jatare. After searching all the things in the world, he says that I don't find anything in the world which can even be compared to a guru. Sadguroho Jnanadatuhu, the giver of knowledge, who is Sadguru, he does not have a parallel, a comparison itself. And somebody said, Sparshasche tatra kalpyaha. Sparsha is nothing but it is known as Parasmani, Sparshamani. So this is a specific gem which had the power to change anything which comes into contact with gold. So in Greek mythology, we know something known as the Midas touch. Midas was a Greek, in the Greek mythology, there is something known as Midas, and he was very greedy, and he was always wanting to accumulate and amass wealth. And then suddenly he gets this power where whatever he touches turns into gold. So the same thing in our scripts also, there is something known as Sparshamani. This Sparshamani only in later Hindi, it became Vikriti and it became Parasmani. Okay. So this money had this power to change whatever it came into contact into gold. So somebody said, can you not say that this money is the proper drishtanta for a guru? Because whatever it is touching, it is turning it into gold. So similarly, a guru also, he is also reforming us. But then Shankaracharya says, no, you can't even compare that Sparshamani. Why? Because Sparshamani, so he uses the word here, na sparshatvam tathapi Shrita Charana Yoge Sadguruhu Swiya Shishye. So the difference between this money and the guru is, the guru, he imparts all his knowledge to the Sishya, and he makes the Sishya also into guru. he brings him to that level. But look at the Sparsha money. This money, it is turning something into gold. But is it giving the power to the thing which has turned into gold? Now, let's suppose this is Sparsha money and this is a cup. Now, this Sparsha money comes in contact with the cup and then it becomes a golden cup. Now, if the golden cup is touching something else, is touching this phone, it is not turning the phone to gold. But that is not the case of a guru. The guru, through his knowledge, he is raising the intellect and he's raising the platform of his shishya to his level. And next, what is happening? Now, after the shishya has become self-realized, this shishya also, he has the power to again make such shishyas. So hence, whatever comparison you have tried to make between a guru and this Parshamani, that will not hold good, because this Parshamani, it is just turning one particular thing to gold, and these are not turning other things. So that is why he has used Sparshatvam. Sparshatvam is the jati or universal property. The guru, he brings in the Sishya Gurutvam. Whereas this Sparshamani is not able to bring that Sparshatvam in whatever it is coming in contact with. So hence a guru cannot be even compared to this Sparshamani is what. Swiyam Samyam Vidhatte. The guru is elevating the Shishya to such a position where he is on par, he is on the level of the guru. Means the guru is bringing out Gurutvam in a Shishya. Hence, guru is Nirupama. Nirupama is something which cannot be compared, something which does not have a Drishtanta. Tena va alaukikopi. So, when the word alaukika here is used in the sense that Drishtanta in the worldly sense. So, sometimes when we have a lot of pain, what do we say? Oh, the pain feels like. So, hell is something. So, the heaven and hell, these concepts, these which are something which we do not see in this world. But we compare something to an outwardly thing. Similarly, a guru does not have a comparison in this world, and guru does not have a comparison with some out of the world thing also. That is what Shankaracharya wants to convey through this beautiful shloka. So, having said this, I would like to conclude my session here, and I would also like to just say as a concluding remark that even though we have such a very vast Guru Parampara, we had so many rishis, but always having a living person as a guru is an added advantage. Those gurus will show us the path, but in case of a doubt, you will have to again resort to somebody to guide you. So having a guru present along with us in our life is an added advantage to us, and such a guru in our case is, we are fortunate to have this Kanchi Matam and this Avichinna Parampara, that the parampara, that generation to generation without any breaks or gaps, that knowledge has been passed from one guru to another, and we are lucky to have today our guru, our acharya, our guru, who is Sri Shankar Vijayendra Saraswati Swamiji. So having paid my Sashtanga Pranamas to his holy feet, I would like to conclude my session here. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Thank you, Sharma Garu, for giving me this opportunity. And like I have said, it was actually my father who should have sat here and who would have told so many better things than me. So if there is something new which I have learned, it is because of his grace. And if there is some mistake which I have said, that is only my mistake, and we can't attribute our mistakes to our guru. Having said this, I thank Sharma Garu again, and I congratulate all the young participants and their parents especially for having taken this initiative and putting your children into such a noble program so that they know about our Guru Parampara and our Sanatana Dharma. Thank you very much. Namaskaram.
We are finished this Guru Parampara. We have another 5 minutes. We can anybody can wants to ask some questions. Please raise your hand, so then I will open up their mic and put a question, and then we will close it. And we will take it for 5 minutes, and then the rest of the questions we will take it in the WhatsApp, and then we'll answer them separately.
Yeah, okay, fine.
Please. And you said like there is a grace on everybody. When 1,000 people
Yes.
come, everybody feels it. He's looking at him, and
Yes.
they feel, yeah, he's looking at me, and he's talking to me, and he's doing it. It is the same case with President Peru also.
He has raised his hand.
He, from beginning, he's kept a hand on the face, but
Okay.
just go and ask him.
So my question, I have two questions actually. So the
Yeah,
first
okay.
question is, in the Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu mantra, is it, so it's like Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheswara. Is it Guru Sakshat Param Brahma or Para Brahma?
There are both versions. You can say Parabrahma and Param Brahma. Both versions are there. It does not make any difference. Okay?
Yeah, and the other question is that before like this Guru Parampara, we had a Rishi Parampara,
Yes.
and they were like, they told that they're going to like give us an assignment that like he's going to give us like a list of rishis, and then we have to use sources to write an autobiography about them. I couldn't get the assignment.
Okay. So, do you want an assignment of such sort even on the Guru Parampara? Is that what you're trying to ask?
No, I mean to say like before Guru Parampara started,
Yeah.
Rishi like Rani Sadasiva Murthy
Yes.
Garu, he gave us an assignment, but he didn't actually like give us a list of rishis to write. So I was just,
Okay, I think that Kompela Sharma Garu, he will post it to you after a few days because you are having classes every day, right? So you need
Yeah.
some time to think and do this assignment. You just can't give a list and ask you to write the next day, right? That is not how assignments work. You will have to put your mind into it. So
Okay,
I think I would request Sharma Garu to make sure that all these enthusiastic kids get the assignment, and so that they can, send it back. Thank you, Kaushik.
Yeah, we are end of the Dharma Moolam. We are going to do that all that part. All the questions from the related to the topics, the pundits will select and they will give it. So that will be given as a end of the section in assignment, and that will be taken care by our team. Where they will reach to you in whatever the communication method we have it in the end of the complete Dharma Moolam program. Okay, next
Okay.
see.
Sri Rekha.
Yeah, please go, Sri Rekha. Sri Rekha, please go ahead. Oh, okay.
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Namaskaram.
Namaskaram.
So, yesterday you had mentioned about Shankara Vijayam, about the biography or autobiography. Is it autobiography or biography of Adi Shankaracharya?
No, it is not a
It is not autobiography. Shankaracharya has not written it. It is a biography.
So where can we find? Is there any PDF or is there any way we can read that particular thing? Because you had mentioned that
The book is available. I mean, it is published in Telugu and it is published in Tamil also, if I'm not wrong. I think
Okay.
Sharma Garu can. So
You're going to
are
give
you? I'm not sure about the PDF. I think Sharma Garu should help me out here.
Yeah, I will answer that part. All the resources, whatever they discussed and suggested by the gurus, all that will be make it available in our Dharmoolam website. Very soon we are going to come with that within a week or 10 days time, and it will be available and it will be informed to you all the resources, whatever it is available. You can utilize that, and if anything extra required, we will provide it those things. Okay, next I will move to the
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, Abhinav, please go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, clearly.
Namaskaram, Dani Shastri garu. Namaskaram.
Namaskaram.
I want to ask, how can we apply this Guru Parampara and Gurukula in modern days and in modern studies? Because I thought I understand it's very pious and very good thing, and how can we apply it today?
It is a good question. Actually, let me explain it, Kalyan garu. So,
Yeah, sure, please.
it is whatever we covered in this particular section is what is we had in the past, how best methods exist, and how to find a guru, and in a modern day also, and how to connect to the guru. All these things and other stuff we discussed. But yeah, it is a right question. It exists. That is the next level of the thing where we are going to have another sections. There we are going to put how these things can be applied, and where we can apply, how best we can adopt and take it through the present life and get the benefit out of it. That is all we are going to come up in the next sections. Next time we are going to in advanced courses we are going to come in, because we can't cover it everything in right. Certainly that is news to of the hour, and everybody now understand what is a guru and guru and everything. So the next step is how they can adopt that for themselves and then take it forward. That will come up in the future. Kalyan garu,
So,
you can add.
Sharma garu, I'll just add one sentence here. So, I will just share my personal experience, okay? So, I'm a millennial, just like you, okay? But then I had a formal education. I was in a missionary school till 10th, and after 10th, I started reading Sanskrit because Sanskrit is there in my family. And then I read under Professor K.E. Devanathan, Ubhaya Vedantam, K.E. Devanathan Garu. I have read Tarka Shastram, a little bit of Tarka Shastram. So, why I am trying to make this statement is, I've had a normal education I had a BA degree, I had an MA degree, I even got a PhD. Those, even after attaining all those degrees, and right now I'm an assistant professor, I teach in a university itself. But hands down, I can say those are just for degrees. Okay. The real education, real knowledge is going to come from a guru. I'll just share one small experience I had. So my guru used to teach me at 4 in the morning. Now, when I say this, I don't mean that whoever teaches at 4 in the morning, only he is a guru, rest all are not gurus. No, that is not what I'm trying to convey. So I used to go to his house at 4 in the morning, and then he was teaching an advanced textbook, and then he just, he clicked his finger and said, "You are looking at me, but whatever I'm teaching is not going into your head." Tell me which college teacher or professor would say this. You're looking at the professor, you're shaking, but whatever he's teaching is not going into your head. That is that level of understanding. That is not happening to you. Who does that in current day society? I'm pretty sure I've never had such an experience right in school or college level, never in my university. But this was because I went and I went at his feet and said, "You have to teach me." And then he said, "Okay, fine." And then he started teaching me. This went on for 3 years. And whatever I can talk now regarding Shastram or something, that is only because of his Anugraham. This I remember every day, day in and day out. So similarly, other people who have read in universities, they might have this feeling of guru towards one particular person. So that way, this guru will always help you in striving forward to a better direction in your life. So, right.
Kalyan garu.
Okay, Sharma. Yes.
Just want to add a little more here, just to give him a quick answer and a solution. We do have under guidance of Eva Miji,
Yes.
integrated Pathsalas. That means it is a modern education along with the traditional education and the value systems. This is a Dharmolam also going to give a facility of the kind of things to the NRIs,
because we can't have integrated schools in outside India. So now this is also is a facility. We are going to do it, for regular time to them, and that all going to come in the next sections, and we'll add up more on that part. But in India, we do have integrated Pathsala. The kids comes under as a Gurukula Pathsala. They read both modern education along with the traditional education. Okay, we are short of time now, and we have to go to the another section, that is Panchatantra for 30 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you.
We will,
Welcome.
Dhanyawad.
Shyamji will say a concluding word. Ram, Shyam, are you there?
Yes, thanks a lot, Kalyan Shastri Garu. It was a very enlightening experience for me personally. It's good to know that you learned Nyaya Shastra from Devanathan Garu. I've heard a lot about him. I've heard his lectures as well. So thanks a lot for sharing that. The Dharma Moolam program is so fortunate to have you as a keynote speaker, and I'm pretty sure we'll be hearing a lot from you in future as well. I do have an exciting announcement for the participants. So previously we thought we'll just do 4 days a week, but because of the so next week we are going to have all 5 days. So from Monday to Friday we are going to have.
sorry, Shyam, only for next week. Only for a week.
Yeah, only for next week.
Yeah.
So
Please
only for next week, we have keynote speakers who is going to talk about Itihasas. So they said that they want to talk with you. They want to talk a lot to you guys. So only for next week, we are going to have classes from Monday to Friday. We'll be sending you guys email with the links. So please follow that. With that, I just want to once again thank Kalyan Shastri Garu for this awesome session.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity also, and humble salutations to the lotus feet of Panchikamakoti Peetam and Swamiji, Paramacharya Jayendra Saraswati Swamiji and Vijayendra Saraswati Swamiji. Dhanyawad. Thank you. Thank you, Sharma Garu, for the opportunity. Thank you so much.
This is the starting, and we are going to have more and more on this. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm just ending the meeting. Thank you, everyone.
धन्यवादः